Hello everybody, this is Pastor Green. We're doing another Bible study, Exodus chapter 21. If you'd like me to come speak at your church, or if you have any questions, you can email me at godsohman@gmail.com. So we're going to start in Exodus 21 verse 1. Now you have to understand that the people of Exodus, they've been living in slavery for over 215 years. So they don't really understand how to be free. And so God's going to put some judgments, not commandments. This isn't like laws. This isn't like rules. It's just really smart ways to live by. A way that we can have like a community together and get along. So Exodus 21, start with verse 1. Now these are the judgments which thou shalt set before them. So God's telling Moses, these are going to be the judgments. So if you do X, Y is going to happen. If you do this, this is what the outcome should be. Everybody's going to know these things. That way, when something happens, you know how to deal with it. You know, if you look at the whole entire Bible, basically prison is never a sentence. The only time you're ever locked up for any kind of time is you can get locked up for 7 days to see if you have leprosy. But any crime that happens, you either get killed, you pay a punishment, or something happens to you. Basically, there's really no, either you get killed, you have to pay a fine, or maybe you get spanked or beaten or whatever. But there's no such thing as really prison time. You make a mistake, you get your punishment, you go live your life. So these are basically going to be considered judgments. So if something happens, this is what's going to be the outcome of it. I'm not saying if you are going to, but if you do, if that by a Hebrew servant, 6 years he shall serve, and in the 7th he shall be set free for nothing. So if you get a servant, he's allowed to serve you for 6 years, and in the 7th year he's set free. Now, I'm going to put at the very, very end of this video, basically the Bible's view. I think it's called, "Does the Bible condone slavery?" or whatever. The Bible does not condone slavery, but people do what they're going to do, and the Bible says if you're going to do this, this is what the deal is going to be. And a lot of times in the Bible, servants are basically, their job is to say, okay, I've got a bill to pay, I don't have the money. So you go to the person that you owe the bill to, and you say, I don't have the money to pay that bill. Can I work with you? Can I work for you for 6 months or a year or whatever the amount of time is to pay off my debt? And then so let's say that here in America, the average daily wage is about, I think it's $75. So let's say you owe $75. So you go to the person and you say, hey, I know you owe you $75, but I can't pay that. Can I work for you tomorrow to pay off that debt? And that's basically what these servants are. The Bible doesn't condone slavery. There is slavery in the Bible. These guys have been slaves for 215 years, but they were done by the Egyptians and not by the Jewish people. But it's saying that if you buy a slave, if you get somebody that's going to work for you for a certain amount of time, they're only allowed to work for you for 6 years, and on the 7th year, you're going to let them basically be free. If the servant came by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he were married, then his wife shall go out with him. So if somebody comes to you and says, hey, listen, we owe $1,000. Me and my wife's going to work for you for 2 years to pay off that $1,000. When the time's over, you both leave. You and your wife leaves. If the master has given him a wife, and she had borne him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be the master's. He shall go out by himself. So if somebody comes to you and says, hey, listen, I want to work for you for 6 years, and in that time you find somebody for him to marry, after the 7 years is up, this person gets to go free, but the wife and the children still belong to the person that's the master, basically. And most likely this is because either he has daughters, or he has other servants that's working for him. And if the servant shall plainly say, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I would not go out free. So sometimes somebody says, hey, I've got a good gig going on. I'm working for this guy. I'm paying off this debt. I got room and board. I got food to pay. I got food. I like this lifestyle. I want to work for this guy for forever. If you say you love your master, I love my wife, my children, and I don't basically, I don't want to leave and have them keep working here. Then his master shall bring him into the judges. He shall also bring him to the door, or unto the doorpost, and his master shall bore in his ear through with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. And an awl is basically like an ice pick, so it's a little pointy piece of metal. You put it up to the ear, you hit it with a hammer, it puts a hole in there, kind of like an ear piercing. And basically this hole in your ear lets people know that I love my master, I've got a great master, I'm going to work for him forever. And that way, when you're out in the town or when other servants see you, they go, wow, this guy's got a good master. I want to work for him. So if you have 15 people that are masters, that are basically bosses, and you see that one guy, all of his servants have pierced ears, you might go, hey, next time I have a debt to pay, I'm going to go see that guy because he takes care of his servants. He takes care of his people. And if a man sells his daughter to be a manservant, she should not go out as the men servants do. Basically saying that you're going to treat ladies different than you're going to treat the men. They're going to be treated differently. And if she pleases not her master, who has betrothed her to himself, then he shall let her be redeemed. To sell her to a strange nation he shall have no power, seeing he has dealt deceitfully with her. So if a woman says, hey, listen, I want to be your wife, I want to basically be engaged to you, and so I want to work for you for a certain amount of time, and then she decides that she doesn't really want to be with this guy, it's perfectly fine. The guy can go ahead and let her be free again, and she can find somebody else to be a servant for. And if he had betrothed her to a son, he shall deal with her after the manner of daughters. So basically, if you go out and you find a single woman who's looking to find a husband, and you say, hey, listen, I've got a son, would you be willing to be his wife? And, basically take care of the house, the kids, or whatever. And she says yes. You're not going to treat her like a servant. You're going to treat her like a daughter. That's how it's going to work. If, not saying that he should, but if he does, these are sinful people. If he takes him another wife, her food, her raiment, and her duty of marriage, she shall not diminish. So basically he's saying that, you're not going to treat her any differently if you get another wife. You're going to treat her right. And if you do not see these three of her, she shall go free without money. So basically, if she decides, I decided I don't want to be your husband anymore, you can leave, and you just don't get paid. And he that smiteth a man so that he die shall be surely put to death. So if you punch somebody and they end up dying, you get to die also. And if a man lie not in wait, but God delivers him to his hand, then I will appoint thee a place where he shall be set free. So if you purposely, if you set forward to hurt somebody, like in the last verse here, you're going to get put to death. But if it was an accident, basically, I think later on in the Bible you're going to see there's going to be 5 or 6 places you can run to, and nothing's going to happen to you there. You basically say, let's say you're driving down the street and you hit someone with your car and they die. It was an accident. You take off to this other town, one of these 5 or 6 towns, and all that basically means is a refugee place where you get a trial set for you. Doesn't mean that you're innocent or guilty or anything like that. It just means that they're going to set a trial for you. But if the person that family member that you killed catches you, well, they can do what they want with you. But this idea is that if it was an accident, you run to one of these places, and then they're going to be a trial set for you. But if a man comes presumptuously upon his neighbor to slay him with guile, thou shalt take from him thine altar, that he may die. So basically, if you purposely hurt somebody, and they run into the church, and they hold onto the altar thinking that's going to save them, no, if you purposely hurt somebody, then you're going to be put to death as well. And he that smiteth his father or his mother shall surely put to death. So if you punch your mom or your dad, then you get put to death. And there's actually a verse in the Bible that talks about somebody doing this. You hit your parents, you get put to death. And he that stealeth a man and selleth him, or he be found in his hand, shall be put to death. So if you kidnap somebody and you sell them, or if you kidnap somebody and they find out you kidnapped them, you get put to death. And he that curses his father and his mother shall be put to death. Now there's no reference in the Bible of this actually happening, but imagine if you talked back to your parents and yelled at them and said mean things to them, and the punishment is that you get put to death. How many kids would talk back to their parents? I mean, I would say very, very small amount, or there wouldn't be a lot of kids around either. And if men strive together, and one smite another with a stone, or with his fist, and he die not, but keepeth his bed. And basically what this is saying is if two guys get into a fight, and one of them gets punched, or hit with a stone or whatever, and he doesn't die, but he has to be bedridden because of his injuries, if he rises again, and he walks abroad upon his staff, that he that smote him shall basically be quiet, and he should pay for the loss of his time, and shall cause him to be thoroughly healed. So basically what it's saying is if you guys get into a fight and you hurt somebody so much that they have to be put in the bed, they got to go through medical treatment, and let's say that it takes 6 months for them to heal, you have to pay all 6 months of his expenses. You have to basically pay him his time for not being able to work. And if a man smiteth his servant or his maid with a rod, and he die under his hands, he shall be punished. So if you hit one of your servants with a rod, and your servant dies, then the master gets punished. Now this is going to basically make sure that the master doesn't hurt his slaves, or his servants I should say, if he doesn't want to hurt his servants, because if he does, he's going to be very much so punished. Notwithstanding, if he continue for a day or two, he should not be punished for his money. So what he's saying is if he hits one of his servants, and the servant is fine, he's not going to get punished. If men strive and hurt a woman with child, so that her fruit depart from her, and yet no mischief follow, he shall be surely punished according to the woman's husband will lay upon him, and he shall pay as the judges determine. So basically what this is saying is that if somebody hits a pregnant woman, and the baby passes away, but the mother still lives, then whatever the father says, whatever the woman's husband says, this person has to pay. So if he says, you owe me $1 million, well, you owe this man $1 million. Basically, that means you're going to be this man's slave the rest of your life, or you pay him the money that you owe him. If you got to sell everything you have, that's what you have to do. And if any mischief follows, then thou shalt give life for life. So if he decides, I don't want to pay that $1 million, then you get put to death. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a hand for a hand, a foot for a foot, burning for a burning, wood for a wood, stripe for a stripe. And if a man smite the eye of his servant, or the eye of his maid, that it perishes, he shall be let him go free for his eye's sake. So if you hit your servant, and you make him go blind in one eye, you can let that servant go free. And if you smite out the manservant's tooth, or his maidservant's tooth, you shall let him go free for his tooth's sake. So if you hit your servant, and a tooth comes out, you have to let that servant go free. And if an ox gore a man or a woman, and they die, then the ox shall be surely stoned, and his flesh shall not be eaten, but the owner of the ox shall be quiet. So what it's saying is, if I own an ox, and my ox goes in and attacks somebody, and so that they die, then my ox gets put to death. But you don't want to eat the flesh, because maybe there was something in the blood that caused this ox to go crazy, rabies or some kind of bloodborne pathogen. So you don't want to eat that because you can get sick off that. So you put the animal to death. Same thing with if a dog or a pit bull. If your pit bull goes out and you kill somebody, then the pit bull gets put to death, or whatever animal it might be. But if the ox were not to push with his horn in time past, and it has been testified to his owner that he should not keep him in, but he has killed a man or woman, the ox shall be stoned, and the owner shall also be put to stone. So if I own an ox that's always hurting people, he's always out there hurting people, and I'm put on notice, hey man, your ox is always out here hurting people. If I choose not to keep that ox, caged up, and something happens, I'm responsible. I'm going to be put to death. Same thing with like a pit bull. I mean, I love pit bulls. I definitely don't against pit bulls, but they're the most common dog attacks. But if your pit bull kills somebody, and it's been known that your pit bull is, a problem, or any kind of dog, whatever you have, and you know about it, you're responsible. But there be laid on him a sum of money that he shall give for the ransom of his life whatsoever laid upon him. So if the guy says, listen, I don't want to be put to death. How about I pay you money for what happened? And the person could say, okay, I won't put you to death. You owe me $1 billion. And the guy's like, well, I can't pay $1 billion. Well, then death it is. Or maybe he'll say, you owe me, $100,000, and the guy sells everything he owns to pay that money off. I mean, that's also possible. If you don't want to die, whatever amount they say that it's worth, that's what you have to pay. Whether he have gored a son or have gored a daughter, according to his judgment, shall it be done to him. So basically, what's saying is, you could, if he gores a person's arm, well then you're going to lose an arm. If he gores his leg, you're going to lose a leg. If the ox shall push a manservant or maidservant, he shall give to his master 30 shekels of silver, and the ox shall be stoned. So if your ox hurts somebody, you owe this person 30 shekels of silver, and the ox is put to death. And if a man shall open a pit, or if a man shall dig a pit and not cover it, and an ox or an ass falls therein, so it basically means if you're out there digging in your backyard, and the neighbor walks by, or the neighbor's animal walks by, and falls in this hole, the owner of the pit shall make it good, and give the money to the owner of them, and the dead beast shall be his. So you're going to pay for the animal that was lost, but you get to keep the dead animal if you want to have like steaks or something like that with it. And if one man's ox hurts another's, that he dies, and they shall sell the live ox and divide the money of it, and the dead ox also they shall divide. So if your ox hurts my ox, you're going to sell your ox, whatever it sells for, we're going to split that money. And then a dead animal, we're going to split the dead animal and have a barbecue later. But, or if they be known that the ox has used to push in times past, and the owner shall not have kept him in, he shall surely pay for an ox, and the dead shall be his own. So if your ox hurts my ox, and you've been put on notice, your ox causes all these problems, you need to keep him caged up, and you don't do it. Now I get the ox, so you pay for my ox, so I get the money, and I get the dead animal as well to have barbecue, so you don't get nothing out of it. Well guys, that's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said at the beginning, I'm going to put in the bottom left corner what does the Bible say about slavery. I think is it condone slavery or something like that. Bottom right corner is going to be the Exodus Bible study. Top left corner is going to be Genesis Bible study. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Have yourself a great day.